There's a night that exists in whispers. A night when the walls closed in on an empire built over 3 decades. A night when loyalty became a mask for greed, and blood became cheaper than silence. This is the story of the Moretti organization, a family that controlled half the city without firing a shot. They were patient. They were disciplined. They believed in waiting for the right moment. But while they waited, something grew in the shadows. Not enemies, not rivals. Something far more dangerous, quiet self-interest disguised as devotion. Tonight, I'm taking you inside one night. One catastrophic night when everything they built crumbled in a matter of hours. Comment where you're watching from and the time you see this. I want to know who's out there listening to stories like these. Don't forget to like this video. It helps more than you know. And subscribe for more Mafia stories like this one. Share this with your loved ones so they can learn from the story, because what happened to the Morettis could happen to anyone who mistakes silence for loyalty. Let's begin. Vincent Moretti didn't grow up wanting to be a boss. He grew up watching his father lose everything by moving too fast. By the time Vincent turned 32, he'd learned the most important lesson the streets could teach. Patience wasn't weakness. It was power. It was 1994 when Vincent took over a small crew in Newark, New Jersey. 7 guys. No real territory. No political connections. Just a reputation for being smart and for never making the same mistake twice. Vincent's philosophy was simple. Wait until you're invisible, then move. Don't take what you can take today if it means losing everything tomorrow. Let others fight for scraps while you position yourself for the entire feast. He never carried a gun. Never raised his voice. Never made threats he didn't keep. And because of that, people trusted him. More importantly, they underestimated him. By 1998, the Moretti crew controlled the docks, 3 unions, and a network of legitimate businesses that laundered money so cleanly the feds couldn't touch them. Vincent didn't do it with violence. He did it with patience. He waited for rivals to destroy each other. He waited for dirty cops to get greedy. He waited for politicians to need favors. And when the moment came, he moved quietly, efficiently, and without witnesses. But patience is a strange religion. It asks for faith. And faith, when tested long enough, turns into doubt. Vincent's inner circle was built on loyalty. At least, that's what everyone believed. There was Anthony Corso, Vincent's right hand. The enforcer who never enforced. Anthony was the one who negotiated, who smoothed over conflicts, who made people disappear without blood. He'd been with Vincent since the beginning. Then Marco DeLuca, the money man. Marco ran the books, the fronts, the investments. He had an accountant's mind and a killer's instinct. He made sure every dollar was clean before it touched Vincent's hands. Dominic Rizzo handled the unions. He was older, wiser, and had connections that went back 40 years. Dominic was the bridge between the old world and Vincent's new one. Sal Peretti ran the streets. He managed the crews, the collections, the small-time operations that kept cash flowing. Sal was loud, aggressive, and loyal to a fault, or so it seemed. And finally, Lucia Moretti, Vincent's younger sister. She didn't carry a title, but everyone knew she was the smartest person in the room. Lucia managed communications, kept records, and more importantly, kept secrets. She was the only one Vincent trusted completely. For years, this circle functioned like a machine. No one overstepped. No one questioned. They believed in Vincent's patience because it worked. But by 2005, something shifted. The family was worth tens of millions. They had power, respect, and protection. But they weren't getting richer. Vincent's strategy was to hold, not grow. To wait for the perfect move that would legitimize everything. And while they waited, the men around him started asking a question they never said out loud. What are we waiting for? It started small. Marco De Luca began skimming. Not much, just enough to feel like he was taking what he deserved. A few thousand here, a few thousand there. Money that wouldn't be missed in an empire worth millions. Marco told himself it wasn't betrayal. He'd been loyal for over a decade. He'd sacrificed time, relationships, freedom. This was just compensation. Just fairness. But greed is a slow poison. It doesn't announce itself. It justifies itself. Within a year, Marco wasn't just skimming. He was creating phantom accounts. He was inflating expenses. He was moving money through offshore channels Vincent didn't even know existed. And Marco wasn't alone. Sal Parody started making side deals. Small-time trafficking that Vincent had explicitly forbidden. Sal told himself he was just being smart, just capitalizing on opportunities Vincent was too cautious to take. He convinced himself that Vincent's patience was actually fear. Dominic Rizzo, the old-timer, the one everyone thought was untouchable, he started talking. Not to the feds. To rivals. He began laying groundwork for a transition. He believed Vincent's era was ending, and he wanted to be on the winning side when it did. Even Anthony Corso, the loyal right hand, started making moves. He didn't skim money. He didn't make side deals. But he started positioning himself. Building relationships Vincent didn't know about. Creating leverage Vincent couldn't see. Each man told himself the same lie. I'm still loyal. I'm just protecting my future. But loyalty without honesty is just a performance. And performances end. March 14th, 2006. A Tuesday night. Vincent called a dinner. Nothing unusual. The family met once a month at a private room in a restaurant in Hoboken. Always the same place. Always the same time. But tonight felt different. Vincent sat at the head of the table. Anthony to his right. Marco to his left. Dominic, Sal, and Lucia filled the remaining seats. Wine was poured. Food was ordered. Conversation was light. But Vincent wasn't eating. He looked at each of them. Studied them. Not with suspicion. With sadness. I want to talk about the future, Vincent said quietly. The table went silent. We've been patient for a long time, he continued. And I know some of you are tired of waiting. I know some of you think I'm holding us back. No one spoke. But I need to know, are we still a family? Or have we become a business? Lucia watched her brother carefully. She knew that tone. That question wasn't rhetorical. Anthony cleared his throat. Vincent, we're solid. You know that. Doi. Vincent's eyes didn't leave Anthony's. Marco shifted in his seat. We've always been loyal to you, Vincent. Always. Loyalty, Vincent repeated slowly. That word gets used a lot. But I wonder if we all mean the same thing when we say it. Dominic leaned back, arms crossed. What are you really asking, Vincent? Vincent's expression didn't change. I'm asking if you're still with me, or if you're just waiting for me to get out of the way. The silence that followed was suffocating. Sal broke it. Vincent, come on. We're here. We've always been here. Vincent nodded slowly. Then he stood. Good, he said. Because tonight, everything changes. Vincent didn't go home that night. Neither did anyone else. At midnight, Vincent's phone rang. It was one of his street captains. A shipment had been intercepted. Not by cops. by a rival crew. A crew that somehow knew the exact route, the exact time, the exact vehicle. Information that only 5 people had access to. By 12:30 a.m., Vincent was in a warehouse in Bayonne. Anthony, Marco, Dominic, and Sal were called in. Lucia stayed behind to monitor communications. Vincent stood in the center of the warehouse, hands in his pockets. "Someone talked," he said simply. "That's impossible," Anthony said immediately. "No one outside this room knew." "Exactly," Vincent replied. The air turned cold. Marco stepped forward. "Vincent, you can't seriously think." "I don't think anything," Vincent interrupted. "I know. I've known for 6 months." The room froze. "I've been watching, listening, waiting." Vincent's voice was calm, almost sad. "I gave everyone a chance to come clean, to be honest, to remember what we built." Sal's face went pale. "Vincent, Sal, you've been running side deals for 8 months. Small-time trafficking I explicitly forbade." Sal opened his mouth, closed it, said nothing. Vincent turned to Marco. "You've been skimming for over a year. Offshore accounts, phantom expenses, creative accounting." Marco's hands trembled. "I can explain, Dominic," Vincent continued, not letting Marco finish. "You've been talking to the Bellini crew, setting up a transition, preparing for my exit." Dominic didn't deny it. He just stared. Vincent finally looked at Anthony, his oldest friend, his right hand. "And you," Vincent said quietly. "You didn't steal. You didn't talk. But you knew. You knew everything and said nothing." Anthony's jaw clenched. "I was trying to protect you." "From what?" Vincent asked. "From losing everything, because you wouldn't move." The truth hung in the air like smoke. Vincent nodded slowly. "So that's it. You all decided I was the problem. That patience was weakness. That loyalty was optional." "We're still loyal," Sal said desperately. You just wanted more," Vincent finished. "And instead of asking, you took. Instead of talking, you hid. Instead of trusting me, you prepared to replace me." No one argued. By 1:30 a.m., the organization was at war with itself. What Vincent didn't know, what no one knew, was that the betrayal went deeper than greed. Marco had made a deal. 3 months earlier, federal agents had approached him. They had evidence. Not enough to convict, but enough to destroy. Marco had a choice: cooperate or lose everything. So Marco chose survival. He'd been feeding information slowly, carefully. Just enough to build a case. Just enough to earn immunity. And tonight, while Vincent confronted them all in that warehouse, Marco had sent a signal. By 3:15 a.m., federal agents were mobilizing. But Marco made one mistake. He underestimated Lucia. Lucia Moretti wasn't just Vincent's sister. She was his insurance policy. She monitored everything: phones, emails, movements. She knew about Marco's meetings. She knew about Sal's side deals. She knew about Dominic's conversations. She'd been feeding Vincent information for months. And tonight, she made a decision. At 3:45 a.m., Lucia called Anthony. "You need to get Vincent out. Now." "What are you talking about?" Anthony asked.
Marco flipped.
"The feds are coming. You have maybe an hour." Anthony's blood went cold. "How do you know?" "Because I've been watching him since September. I wanted to be wrong. I wasn't." Anthony didn't argue. He got Vincent out of the warehouse and into a car. They drove to a safe house in Pennsylvania, a place only 3 people knew about. But the damage was done. By 5 a.m., federal agents raided the warehouse. They found Sal, Dominic, and Marco. They found records. They found evidence. They found everything they needed. The Moretti organization was finished. Vincent sat in the safe house as the sun came up. Anthony was in the next room. Lucia was on her way. Everything they'd built for 12 years was gone. Not because of the feds. Not because of rivals. Because the people closest to him had chosen themselves over the family. Anthony walked in exhausted. What do we do now? Vincent didn't answer right away. He stared out the window at the fields beyond the house. We wait, he finally said. Anthony almost laughed. Wait for what? For them to realize what they lost. They lost nothing, Vincent. They made deals. Marco's probably in witness protection. Sal and Dominic will cut deals too. They'll walk. Vincent shook his head. They'll walk into nothing. No family. No protection. No future. They traded everything for survival. And survival isn't living. Anthony sat down. What about us? We disappear. Start over. Stay quiet. And Lucia? She's already gone. Lucia had left the country that morning. She had accounts, documents, and connections no one knew about. She'd been preparing for this possibility for years. Because unlike everyone else, Lucia understood her brother's philosophy. Patience wasn't about waiting for the perfect moment. It was about being ready when everything fell apart. Marco DeLuca got his deal. Full immunity. New identity. Witness protection. He lived in a small apartment in Arizona. He had a job at an insurance company. He had safety. But he had nothing else. No friends. No family. No respect. Just survival. He'd wake up every morning and realize he'd traded 30 years of loyalty for a prison without bars. Sal Parody got 10 years. He took a plea deal and testified. He thought he'd be out in 5 with good behavior. But in prison, he learned what happens to people who betray their family. Even behind bars, the streets have long memories. Dominic Rizzo died of a heart attack 8 months after the arrests. The stress, the guilt, the weight of his choices, it broke him. He never went to trial. He never cut a deal. He just disappeared into a hospital bed and never woke up.
Anthony Corso vanished.
Some say he went to Europe. Others say South America. Vincent never said. But wherever Anthony went, he went alone. Without power. Without purpose.
And Vincent?
Vincent Moretti became a ghost. He lived quietly, moved carefully, and never looked back. He didn't rebuild. He didn't seek revenge. He just existed. Because he'd learned the final lesson the streets could teach. Power built on loyalty is only as strong as the weakest man's greed. The Moretti organization collapsed in one night because it had been dying for years. Not from external threats. Not from law enforcement. From the quiet rot of greed disguised as loyalty. Each man believed his betrayal was justified. Each told himself he deserved more. Each convinced himself that Vincent's patience was cowardice. But what they didn't understand, what they couldn't see, was that patience wasn't Vincent's weakness. It was his test. He'd been waiting to see if they'd stay loyal when loyalty wasn't easy. When growth was slow. When the future was uncertain. And one by one, they failed. They chose greed over trust. Ambition over brotherhood. Survival over family. And in doing so, they destroyed the very thing that gave them power. Vincent once said, The strongest families aren't the ones that never face betrayal. They're the ones that never need to. The Morettis needed to. And when they did, there was nothing left. There's a question people ask when they hear this story. Did Vincent wait too long? Did his patience become paralysis? Did his caution create the very doubt that destroyed him? Maybe. Or maybe the truth is simpler. Maybe loyalty can't survive when it's tested by silence. Maybe trust can't endure when ambition is never addressed. Maybe patience, no matter how disciplined, can't compete with the quiet voice that whispers, "You deserve more." The Moretti family wasn't destroyed by enemies. It was destroyed by the people who loved it most, because love without honesty is just a countdown to betrayal. Vincent disappeared into a life he never wanted. Not because he failed, but because the people around him succeeded in convincing themselves that success meant leaving him behind. And in the end, they were all left with the same thing: nothing. No power. No family.
No legacy.
Just the memory of a night when everything fell apart because they waited too long to be honest with each other. So when you think about loyalty, don't think about the people who stay when times are good. Think about the people who stay when staying means having the hard conversations, when staying means admitting they want more, when staying means trusting that honesty won't be punished. Because the Morettis had loyalty. They just didn't have truth. And without truth, loyalty is just a mask we wear until we decide to take it off. The family that waited too long didn't lose everything in one night. They lost it over years of silence. The night just made it visible. Vincent Moretti lives under a different name. He works as a consultant for small businesses. He helps people avoid mistakes. He doesn't talk about his past. Lucia Moretti runs a nonprofit in Eastern Europe. She never married. She never returned to America. She sends Vincent a postcard every year on March 14th. It never has words, just a picture. Anthony Corso was last seen in Lisbon in 2009. After that, nothing. Marco De Luca still lives in witness protection. He's 58 years old. He'll die alone. Sal Peretti was released from prison in 2014. He works at a car wash in Tucson. No one knows his real name. Not even him sometimes. Dominic Rizzo is buried in a cemetery in Newark. His grave is unmarked. No one visits. The Moretti organization is a memory. A story told in back rooms and quiet conversations. But the lesson remains. Loyalty without honesty is betrayal in waiting. And families that don't speak the truth die in silence. This was the story of the family that waited too long. May we all learn before the night comes. If this story made you think, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. Like this video if it moved you. Subscribe for more stories that dig deeper than the surface. And comment below. Tell me what you would have done if you were Vincent. Would you have waited? Or would you have moved? Because sometimes the hardest decision isn't what to do. It's when to stop waiting.